Assalamualaikum and good morning. So today from Group 2, so today we are going to present about transportation system in Klang Valley towards an integrated, sustainable and inclusive urban mobility system. Next we move to the introduction. The Klang Valley is Malaysia's largest metropolitan regions and serve as the country's main economic, administrative, commercial and social hub. The study area includes Kuala Lumpur and the surrounding major cities like Petaling Jaya, Shah Alam, Suruhanjaya, Klang, Ampang, Puchong and Kajang. Rapid urbanization and population growth have increased daily travel depends on private vehicles and traffic congestions. According to the 2020 population of housing census, Malaysian urbanization rate reached 75.1%. The greatest Kuala Lumpur Klang Valley region is estimated to have a population of approximately 10 million, make it in the regions with the highest travel demand in the country. These challenges highlight the need for an integrated, efficient, accessible and sustainable transportation system to improve mobility and support the continual growth of the Klang Valley. Next. Next is study background. Evolution of Klang Valley transportation system. The first evolution of the Klang Valley transportation system is before 1990, road-based transportation, where transportation was dominated by private vehicle, taxi, and conventional buses. Limited rail service with a minimal integrations between transport modes, rapid urbanization, and increased car ownership lead to self-traffic congestion. The second evolution is 1990 to 2010, development of the urban transit, where in 1995, KTM commuter began operation as a Malaysian first commuter rail service. In 1996 to 1998, introduction of the Star LRT, now is Ampang and Sri Petaling Line, and Putra LRT is now is Kelana Line. In 2003, KL monorail common operation, improving connectivity within the Kuala Lumpur. Expansions of the rail network reduce dependence on private vehicles and improve accessibility. The last evolution is 2010, present integrated transportation era. In 2019, MRT Sungai Buloh to Kajang Line commenced operations. In 2022, MRT Putrajaya was opened in phase and fully operational in 2023. Extensions of the LRT Kelana Jaya and Ampang lanes, introduction of integrated transport planning including transit-oriented development, far and right facility, and seamless interchange stations. And the last one is continuous improvement under the Greater Kuala Lumpur Klang Valley Public Transport Master Plan. Next.
And our study education in Klang Valley Metropolitan Region. So our geographic position is located in central west coast of Peninsular Malaysia, and the composition is comprised the federal territories of Kuala Lumpur and Putrajaya, along with surrounding districts in the state of Selangor. So the economic structure is the primary economy, financial and industrial engine of Malaysia. Next. So this is our map, the Klang Valley map. So as you can see, the first is highway, is the green color, and the gray color is the principal road, and the blue color is the Klang River. And next. So our boundaries study location in the north, which is Kuala Selangor. That is the suburban agriculture and ecological interface. So the south limit, which is Sepang, then aviation gateway KLIA, digital corridor Cyberjaya, and industrial growth belt. So for the east limit, which is Gombak, that's hilly terrain limits and major forest catchment. For the west limit, which is Klang, that was the industrial coastal gateway anchored by Port Klang. So, the core urban development centers. So, the study specifically evaluate the transit corridors linking the four largest commercial and residential engines. So, for the first one is the Kuala Lumpur, that's the dense, high-yield commercial and financial core. The next is Subang Jaya. Subang Jaya is high-density mix-up retail, resident, and education hub. The third is Petaling Jaya. Petaling Jaya is the highly measured satellites commercial and corporate officer cluster. And the last one is Shah Alam. The Shah Alam industrial powerhouse and rapidly expanding residential states capital.
Next is objective of our whole study. The first objective is to analyze existing public transportation network coverage. Number 2 is to evaluate accessibility and connectivity of transit facility. Number 3 is to identify challenges, effective public transport usage. And the last one is to propose improvement strategy based on TOD and sustainable mobility principle. Next is a rich aim, where the aim of this study is to evaluate the effectiveness of the integrated transportation system in Klang Valley by examining the existing public transportation network, connectivity, accessibility, and mobility challenges. The study is also aimed to identify improvement strategy towards achieving a more efficient, sustainable, and user-oriented urban transportation system. So for the key focus area is to assess the existing transportation network and its level of integration between different modes. The second one is evaluate accessibility and the connectivity of public transport service across Klang Valley. The third is identify current transportation issue including congestion, last mile connectivity, and dependences on private vehicles. The last one is recommended sustainable mobility strategy to improve public transportation efficiency and urban livability. Next is transportation network overview. Existing public transport system. The Klang Valley has one of the comprehensive multimodal public transportation network in Malaysia, integrating rail, bus, and first and last mile service to improve connectivity and mobility across the metropolitan region. The network is designed to reduce reliance on private vehicles while providing efficient access to major residential, commercial, and employment centers. The first existing public transportation system is a railway. The railway network forms the backbones of public transportation in Klang Valley, connected major urban centers and supporting high-capacity passenger movement. Next is the bus system. The bus network complements the rail system by improving accessibility and providing first and last mile connection. For example, Rapid KL bus is a main urban bus service across Klang Valley. For Rapid KL feeder bus is connect residential area to MRT and LRT station. And the last is BRT Sunway Lane is dedicated bus rapid transit corridor linking Sunway and UST. And the last is supporting transport service. Supporting service enhance the convenience and accessibility of the public transport system. For example, taxi and e-hailing service, park and ride facility selected, and pedestrian walkway and cover linkage to improve first and last mile connectivity. For the last is key fact, is actually rail network is more than 250 km of MRT, LRT, monorail, and KTM commuter lines. Major operator is Rapid KL operator most rail lanes and bus service with the Klang Valley. And the last is coverage. The integrated network connects Kuala Lumpur with the major city, including Petaling Jaya, Shah Alam, Subang Jaya, Klang, Puchong, Kajang, Ampang, and Putrajaya. Next. So the research questions. The study is guided by several research questions to understand the effectiveness, challenges, and future direction of the integrated transportation system in Klang Valley. The first question is, how effective is the existing transportation network in Klang Valley? Is to examine the performance of current public transport system in the terms of network coverage, connectivity reliability, and integrations between different transport models. The second one is what factors influence public transport accessibility. Is to identify a factor affecting user accessibility to public transportation, including station location, service frequency, connectivity and affordability, pedestrian facility, and the first and last mile access. Next. The third question is, what are the major challenges affecting transit usage? Is to investigate issues that reduce public transport usage, such as traffic congestion, limited coverage in certain areas, overcrowding, low waiting times, and have high dependence on private vehicles. The last one is how Klang Valley achieves sustainable mobility. Is to explore potential strategy improve transportation sustainable through the better integrations, transit-oriented development, improve public transport service, and low carbon mobility solution. Next. Next is transportation planning concept. Sustainable urban mobility is an urban mobility focused on creating a transportation system that provides efficient movement of the people while reducing environmental impact and improving quality of life. In the Klang Valley, this concept is important to address issues such as traffic congestion, high private vehicle dependence, and increased travel demands. The first main principle of sustainable urban mobility is accessibility, by providing convenient access to transportation service and destinations, where it is to ensure people can easily reach workplace, education center, commercial area, and public facility. Focus improving public transportation coverage, station connectivity, and first and last mile accessibility. The second one is efficiency. Improving travel performance and reducing unnecessary travel time. Enhance integrations between different transport modes such as MRT, LRT, KTM, and buses. Reduce delay through between scheduling, connectivity, and transport management. Encourage a shift from private vehicles and efficient public transport. Next is sustainability. Reducing environmental impact from these transportation activities. Promote the usage of the public transport, walking and cycling, help reduce the carbon emissions, fuel consumptions, and traffic congestion, support low carbon development, and climate-friendly mobility solution. And the last one is inclusiveness, where ensuring the transportation services are accessible for all users, to provide equal mobility opportunities regardless of age, income, and physical ability. Improve universal design through a barrier-free facility, pedestrian pathway, and accessible stations. And the last one is create safer and more comfortable transportation experience. Next, literature review. Integrated transportation system. An integrated transportation system, ITS, refers to a transportation approach that connects different modes of transport into a coordinated network. Integrations between a rail, bus, and supporting service improve connectivity, accessibility, travel efficiency, and user experience. In the context of Klang Valley, an integrated system aims to provide seamless movement between different transport modes while reducing dependence on private vehicles and improve sustainable urban mobility. So, for the key component of transportation integrations, the first one is a physical integrations, connecting different transportation facilities through a proper infrastructure, such as ensure convenient transfer between different transport modes, reduce walking distance, and improve passenger comfort. For example, MRT and LRT station connected with a bus terminal, pedestrian walkway, and a park and ride facility. The second key component is operational integrations, coordinating service between different transportation operators, such as improve transfer efficiency by aligning schedules and service frequency, reduce passenger waiting time during transfer, for example, bus schedule with an MRT and LRT train service. Next. The third key component is fare integrations, is to providing a unified payment system across multiple transport modes, which is allow passengers to use a single payment method and different service, make a public transport more convenient and affordable. For example, touch and go card system used for MRT, LRT, KTM commuter and rapid KL service. And the last one is information integrations, where to provide accurate and accessible travel information, which is help user plan journey efficiently, provide real-time updates and arrival time, routes and service disruptions. For example, real-time train and bus information through mobile application and digital display. Next. Next is a transit-oriented development. TOD is an urban planning approach that integrates high-quality public transport with compact and mixed-use development. TOD aims to create a more sustainable urban environment by encourage people to live, work, and access daily activity within a walking distance of public transport stations. The first concept of TOD is transit accessibility, is to development with a 400 meter to 8 to 800 meter walking distance from transit stations. Create convenient access to MRT, LRT, KTM, and bus service. Encourage walking and reduce dependence on private vehicles. Improve connectivity between residential area and employment center. The characteristic of TOD is first, high density, concentrates residential, commercial, and employment activity near transit station. Support efficient land use increase of public transport readership. The second one is a mixed land use, combine different activities such as residential area, office, retail and commercial space, public facility, and reduce the needs for long distance travel. Next. The third one is walkable environment, where it provides pedestrian and friendly infrastructure including safe walkway coverage, cover pedestrian link, cycling facility, and universal access facility. The last one is reduce car dependence, encourage a shift from private vehicle to public transportation, help reduce traffic congestion and carbon emission.
Alright. For this page is the existing rail network. So in Klang Valley we have first rail network is MRT, which is mass rapid transit. The MRT line act a high-speed mega corridor and strategically built to catch commuters from dense, growing suburban areas like Putrajaya, Cyberjaya, and Kajang. Shoot them directly into the heart of downtown Kuala Lumpur, such as Bukit Bintang and Tuanku Razak Exchange, TRX, financial districts. So as you can see in the right, we have the MRT Laluan Kajang and MRT Laluan Putrajaya. So next is the second rail network in Klang Valley is LRT, which is light rapid transit. So the LRT serve as the tight, high frequency inner network and heavily popular residential neighborhood and older commercial zone like Subanjaya, Petaling Jaya, Ampang and Ceras. The Kelana Jaya lane in particular is one of the busiest fully automated driverless system in the world. So as you can see on the right, we have the roads of LRT and the next is existing rail network which is KTM Kereta Api Tanah Melayu. So the KTM function less like an urban subway and more like a regional suburban railway. So it features massive, sprawling lines that stretch past the inner valley limits, pulling in long-distance commuters from northern boundaries like Rawang and Tanjung Malim, southern town like Seremban, and western industrial port like Klang. So as you can see in the right, we have the commuter KTM four-line ideas, which is from Pelabuhan Kelang to KL Central, Pulau Sebang to KL Central, Batu Cave to KL Central, and Tanjung Malim to KL Central. So the next is the Klang Valley Integrated Transit Map. So this is the map which is the KTM, the LRT, and the MRT in Klang Valley. So next is readership analysis. So the public transport readership trend, and the first is key growth driver. So rapid network expansion, MRT line integrated and upcoming, the LRT3 Shah Alam line. So the next, escalating urban population, grow in Greater Kuala Lumpur, and increase road congestion, discouragement private vehicle commutes. So the current baseline performance is more than 1 million commuters per day. So this is the total replica area network average. So the key operation challenge is the peak hour overcrowding that was extremely bottlenecking during standard 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. windows. Uneven demand distribution, the high concentration on the main arteries, which is Kajang MRT and Kelana Jaya LRT, related to secondary lines. So as you can see, the in the right we have the rapid KL readership analysis. The most people are using Kajang MRT, and the next is Kelana Jaya MRT, and the lowest is KL monorail. So the next is road transport condition for existing road network and major arteries. So the greatest Kuala Lumpur and Klang vary really heavily on the high dense interconnected toll expressway system managed by concessionaires. So the first is North-South Expressway, which is plus. The first map is the main interstate backbone traffic carrier. So the second map is the Guthrie Corridor, which is Elite Highway. That was a key western bypass link in major logistic hub and KLIA. So as you can see, in the left, we have the new Klang Valley Expressway and Federal Highway Road 2. So that is the major northern urban artery facing severe saturation. In the right, as you can see, is the Damansara Puchong Expressway LDP. That was the road's then suburban commuter connector. And next, the critical system issue. So, the first is chronic peak hour congestion, the compound by bottleneck interchange and weather-induced gridlock. The second is inflated commute and travel times. The average commute times continue to rise annually during peak hour. And the third is high vehicle dependency, the public transport displacement due to sprawling first or last mile infrastructure gaps. So as you can see in the right, we have the data challenges, the hyper ownership. So that was a Malaysia vehicle congestion dashboard. So the more congestion is motorcycle, and the second is car, which is 8.7 million motorcycle and 8.6 million cars, and the lowest is a van and bus, which is 0.0 million, and the lorry 0.1 million. So the land use and transport relationship, the special mismatch, which is job versus housing. The Klang Valley's core challenge is the physical distance between where people work and where people they live. So, employment hub that was destination, the KL City Central, Balsa and Petaling Jaya. For the resident beds, which is origin, which is that was the Shah Alam, Puchong and Klang. So the core problem is sprawl versus rail. The housing development are expanding much faster than mass transit infrastructure. And the second is forced car dependency. The gap in first and last mile connectivity force suburban residents to drive. And the third is expressway choke point. The million of daily commuters funnel into the same highway corridors, which is further LDP Kesas, causing daily gridlock. So the interactive flow model, toggle the transit network coverage below to see how expanding rail directly reduces suburban highway gridlock. So as you can see, this is the commuter flow simulation. Most people from Shah Alam go to KLCC, and the most from Kelang is go to PJ. So the next is methodology, research framework. So we have to do a four-step progressing workflow, translating raw ground data into practical state to align transport policies. So the first one, the step one is data collection, and the second is analysis and issue identification, and the last is strategy development. So the data collection, the phase one, the focusing on gathering physical, policy and commuter baseline across the study corridor. And the phase two, which is analysis, identify systematic patterns, commuting density maps and travel correlation metric. And the phase three is issue identification, pinpoints high congestion corridor, first and last mile black spot, and infrastructure gap. So for the last is the solution or strategy development, which is the formulated practical transport solution and multimodal integration policies. So the second, in the study, we have the literature review, the evolution regional master plan, DBKL development guidelines, and legacy traffic records. So the second is GIS spatial analysis, mapping residential location, commercial hub, and public transport accessibility buffer. And the third is direct observation, real-time physical mapping of traffic volume bottleneck and primarily Crown Valley Expressway toll plazas. And the fourth is commuter surveys, directly gathering qualitative passenger feedback of first or last mile challenge and road preference. So the next, this is the GIS buffer analysis. Transit catchment parameters to identify walking accessibility, concentric GIS zone are draw from station coordinate centroid. So the first one is 400-meter walking buffer, approximately 5-minute walk, that primary walking catchment boundaries, highest density potential directly impact daily commuter willing to walk metric. So the second is 800 walking buffer, approximately a 10-minute walk, that's maximum standard pedestrian catchment, outer limits, and structural walking willingness. So the core objective is the first one, exposing systematic mismatch to map exact population densities inside walking circle, and the next is isolation access barriers to mathematically evaluate safe pedestrian transit reach. So the key finding, urban versus suburban. So the urban core, which is KLCC MRT or LRT, the 92% effective coverage. So the high density, pedestrian friendly walking grid paths. So the accessibility is high inclusive cover walkways. So for the suburban corridors, which is Puchong Shah Alam, the 38% effective coverage. So the slashes walking catchment due to several sidewalk corridors and highway black aids And the next is major pedestrian obstacles. The expressway boundaries, which is LDP and KESAS, acting as structured physical wall, forcing automobile dependency. So as you can see in the right, we have the simulation of the urban core and suburban core. The next is network analysis. The travel connectivity assessment. So a comparative analysis of transit routing, travel speeds, and convenience index across key Klang Valley corridor. So the network parameters analyzed, short road spacing, the highway efficiently versus rail alignment track layout. So the second is total door-to-door travel time, including transfer waiting interval and parking search buffer. So the third is transfer bottleneck, physical interchange, transition, and multi-line connection. So this is the commuter case study, which is Subanjaya to KLCC. The commute mode, which is private vehicle, the average time to go is 35 to 60 minutes. That primary friction point is toll, queue delays, city center bottlenecks, and expensive parking surge. So for the public transport, the average travel time is 45 to 70 minutes. That was the high first or last mile walk time of peak transfer rates. So the core connectivity challenge is, as you can see, this is the graph for the challenging time versus driving competitiveness. So the highest is the transit, which is 16 minutes, and the lowest is the transit DRT, which is 42 minutes. So next is first and last mile analysis. The accessibility gaps. Critical pedestrian barriers is the problem. So the first problem is incomplete sidewalk network, missing line and abrupt walk path ending that force pedestrians directly onto active vehicle lanes. So the second problem is unsafe crossing. The absence of signalized pedestrian crossing, diffuse island or overhead bright at high-speed suburban junction. So the third problem is deficient bicycle facilities. So the zero dedicated micromobility lanes or secure station bicycle lockers, preventing active transit integration.
Ruslan. So, as my part, I'm going to talk about user behavior analysis. So, as you can see from the side, from the pages and from the slide, user behavior from people that live in Klang Valley, which is surrounding Klang Valley, they have two type of transportation that are used, which is public transportation system or private transportation system. So I'm going to say here as what we analysis, we found that although the government has introduced the various public transportation system, but the traffic congestions in Klang Valley become more critical. The situation can be attributed to several behavioral and individual factors that influence people's choice of transportation mode. So some people they prefer to choose transportation system which is public transportation instead of private transportation, just because some factor just like low costing or safe timing. So from the impact, people will choose public transportation. But some of our people also choose their own private car to going to work to do something they want to do lah. So the issue that we found here is the first one is private vehicle dependency in Klang Valley. Our analysis indicate that commuters in Klang Valley use both private vehicle and public transportation, which is some people when they want to use public transportation, they need to use their private vehicle first to go to reach the nearest station. Uh, for example, they don't have any nearest station from their house, surrounding their house, so they need to go the nearest station by motorcycle or by their own car to go to reach that station. That means whether you are using the public transportation, it was the same thing that you are using the private vehicle to get some point from the first point to the second point. So people will use both transportation system actually. And however, private vehicles remain the dominant mode for many daily trips due to their speed, convenience, and flexibility, while public transportation is commonly used for commuting to major employment and education centers. Some people also use their private vehicle to get their convenient, comfortable system, just like this lah. When we are using the public transportation, we are very limited to do something with our own. For example, when we don't get any, we when we don't get much time to get some breakfast, we cannot eat some breakfast in public transportation. That thing is not allowed from from the agency or from the LRT punya pihak. So people will choose using their private vehicle maybe to get some lunch, get some breakfast, or they can do their own things, getting sharp for the meeting that we they need to deal with. So yeah, some people use private car dependency in Klang Valley based on their convenience and on their timing. The second issue is poor first and last mile connectivity. Public transportation systems such as the LRT and MRT occasionally experience service disruption and technical failure. This thing is so much thing happen in our public transportation system. The reference from the first picture, as you can see from your eyes, I think this picture is happening around 1 month ago in Ampang punya station LRT. The from the news says the train is glitched and then they become accidental outside of their own train, and then the passengers inside they need to go and exchange more than one time train to get their destination. This thing is very not become easy to our passengers that using our public transportation system. From the second point, unexpected incident and delays may occur without sufficient prior notice, causing inconvenience to commuters. Some of our incident or our tragedy that happened, that the first thing we know that is not our expectation. The thing is happening by their own timing. So macam dia tak ada apa makluman awal bagaimana how can happen, how can they can take time to solve the problem. This thing can make passengers ataupun user berasa tertanya-tanya, how can this thing can happen, and then how agency akan ambil tindakan yang sepatutnya. Sebab bila when this thing happen, people have their own people will have their own reason to know, to tell to their, for example lah, to tell to their boss that they come late to their work just because some incident happen in their way, something like that lah. The third one, the service interruption can have physical, mental and emotional impacts, particularly during peak hours. Macam kita boleh tengok I mean around 2 atau 3 years ago, ada LRT bertembung with each other. That thing, some people is injuries on that time, and then people yang ada injuries punya trauma, they will never use the public transportation again. This thing is very give some impacts to our people to trust our public transportation. Because of this incident, some people are never using the public transportation anymore. Okay, So we can see from the second picture, I think this thing I get from our social media, but it's officially from Rapid KL punya statement lah. Okay. They say that mengalami kelewatan disebabkan gangguan sistem teknikal. Sistem teknikal is always happen dekat LRT. Apa tu, I have experience, I need to wait around 30 minutes or almost 1 hour just to standing and then waiting for some reason, waiting for some solution that very long. Very long timing. Very long waiting time actually. The third key issue is lack of integration between mode. In addition to first and last mile connectivity, another challenge faced by the transportation system in Klang Valley is the lack of integration between different mode of transport. Waiting time, masa menunggu. Waiting time in Klang Valley actually is not so much longer lah. The waiting time I think between 5 to 3 minutes out, I think, based on my experience, because I go home weekly, so people will know about the waiting time around 3 or 5 minutes lah per station. The second time in inconvenient transfer. Some interchange require passengers to walk long distance or change multiple level, reducing travel convenience. This thing happen bila kita stop dekat some station. So untuk pertukaran station, sometimes dia punya travel tu memang sangat jauh. Dia sampai macam, for example, untuk station KLCC, passengers yang buat pertukaran stesen, diorang perlu turun ke stesen bawah tanah untuk buat sebarang pertukaran stesen ke stesen yang lain. Contohnya, bila orang yang nak pulang ke Gombak instead of pulang ke Ampang, benda tu sebenarnya makan masa sebab waiting time dah panjang and then beratur pula lama. So, benda tu memang kacau diorang punya timing lah. The third one is different operators. Different transport operators may have varying service schedules and operational system, resulting in less efficient coordination. The fourth key issue is unequal transit accessibility. The final key issues identified is the unequal accessibility of public transportation across the Klang Valley. The first one is high accessibility in urban area. Urban centres such as Kuala Lumpur, Putrajaya and Suruhanjaya benefit from extensive public transport network, providing commuters with greater accessibility and connectivity. Limited accessibility in outer Klang Valley. In contrast, many suburban and outer areas have limited public transport coverage, making it more difficult for residents to access reliable transit service. For example, the example that I can give from this statement is people, just like we know, UiTM Puncak Alam is very far away from the nearest station for MRT lah. Dekat sini paling dekat I rasa dekat MRT Kuasa Central. And then some of students who are studying in Puncak Alam, they are not coming from Kuala Lumpur or the nearest Selangor. Some of people are coming from for example, almost my classmate coming from the southern punya state, just like Johor, Melaka and Seremban. So when cuti bila semester break is coming, diorang bukannya datang daripada Puncak Alam go home directly from Puncak Alam ke diorang punya negeri. No, they need to have some transit from the station. Like example, maybe they go move to TBS or any nearest station, KTM or MRT untuk mereka pulang ke negeri masing-masing. So benda tu jadikan bukan setakat dekat Puncak Alam tapi dekat luar negeri pun sama. Macam kat sini, based on our maps, transit integration in Lembah Kelang, the nearest, maybe orang fokus ke Kuala Lumpur such as KL Central, Pasar Seni, Museum Negara, Merdeka and Ampang actually. SWOT analysis that I finalized here is for the strength. The transportation system has several strengths, including the extensive rail network, multiple transport options, and continuous investment by the government to improve the public transportation system infrastructure. However, several weaknesses remain, including the heavy reliance on private vehicles, limited first and last mile connectivity, and unequal accessibility across different parts of Klang Valley. The opportunities here is there are also significant opportunities to improve the system through transit-oriented development (TOD), smart mobility technologies, and the expansion of sustainable transportation initiative. T is stand for threats. Increasing population growth, urban sprawl, and rising private vehicle ownership continue to pose major challenges to the transportation system. So the first proposal to reduce some problem in public transportation in Klang Valley is integrated mobility hub. To create an integrated hub of major transit station to enable seamless transfer between different mode of transport. Based on the picture here, kita tengok dekat KL Central is the main station in Klang Valley. They have some of the nearest transit such as MRT and LRT interchange. They already have their bus terminal and feeder bus, and they already have a e-hailing drop-off area. So some of passengers can no longer waiting time area lah untuk nak tunggu dorang punya e-hailing ataupun anything dorang punya transportation system based on their punya destination. The key component is MRT and LRT interchange, bus terminal, feeder bus, bicycle parking, e-hailing, commercial facilities, and cover pedestrian connection. The second proposal is improve first and the last mile connectivity to provide safe, convenient, and inclusive access between residential areas, transit station, and daily destination. Existing generation this thing is already happened in our punya ni lah street road. Kita tengok kat sini damage and no apa tu nama exposing pedestrian to the heat and rain, limited feeder bus service, and the unsafe crossing and lack of accessibility for elderly children. Absolutely for the absolutely for the person with disabilities. So we need to change this to the better improvement, such as cover and connected pedestrian walkways for the all-weather comfort, safe and continuous cycling lanes connecting communities and stations, improve feeder bus frequency, coverage and facilities for better first and last mile access. And the last one is universal design facilities including ramps, tactile paving, and barrier-free access for all users, including the person with disabilities. So the journey is become more easier to people using the public transportation from the home origin, using the walk or cycle feeder bus, go to transit station, and they already arrive at their destination such as school, work, or shopping mall, anything they want to go. The third proposal or the last proposal here is expand TOD development to create compact, mixed-use and walkable development within 800 meters of major transit station. So every nearest station, they might have their convenient place ataupun orang cakap kemudahan yang setara dalam radius around 800 meters untuk keperluan orang awam, especially people are using or living in the Klang Valley area, such as here LRT Ala Damansara, Petaling Jaya, and Klang Valley. So the 800 meters is TOD influence area, and the 400 meters is primary walking zone. So people who live 400 meters from the nearest station, they can heavily walking from their home to the station within 400 meters. TOD components here is mixed-use development, affordable housing, commercial activities and local service, public facilities, walkable street, cycling network, public open space, and active street. The last one is control parking and reduce car dependency. Expected impact, so people are using more increase of public transportation, ridership, reduce social distance, more active and livable station areas, better access to the housing, job, and service. The last one is reduce private vehicle dependency. Same just like before this, people will have their safe journey from their home to the walk and cycle feeder bus to the LRT station, and then they are arriving from their destination where they want to go. So that's all from my side.
And I will continue our presentation with proposal 4. Our fourth proposal is the smart transportation system. The aim is to improve the efficiency and reliability of transportation in Klang Valley by using smart technology. The first strategy is integrated journey planning. Users can check MRT, LRT, KTM, bus, e-hailing, and walking route in one application. The application can also show the base route, travel time, and estimated fare. The second strategy is a real-time travel information. Users can track train and bus arrival time, service delay, and traffic condition. We also propose integrated smart ticketing, where one payment system can be used for different public transport services. Lastly, smart traffic management uses CCTV, sensor, and smart traffic light to manage congestion. Overall, this proposal can reduce waiting time and make traveling easier. Next, our fifth proposal is green transportation. The aim is to reduce carbon emissions and dependence on private vehicles in Klang Valley. This proposal is important because Klang Valley faces traffic congestion, air pollution, and limited pedestrian and cycling facilities. The first strategy is to introduce electric buses and charging facilities. The second strategy is to develop safe and continuous cycling lanes that connect residential areas, activity centers, and public transport stations. We also propose better pedestrian walkways with proper lighting, shading, and safe crossings. Low emission and car-free zone can also be introduced in selected transit stations. Overall, the proposal can reduce pollution and create a healthier urban environment. Next, this slide shows our proposed transportation framework for Klang Valley. The main vision is to create an integrated, accessible, and sustainable transportation system. The framework has four main components. The first component is the transit network, which connect MRT, LRT, KTM, monorail, and bus services. The second component is transit-oriented development, or TOD. It encourages residential, commercial, and public facilities to be located near public transport stations. The third component is a green transportation, which promote electric buses, cycling, and walking. The fourth component is smart mobility, which include journey planning, real-time information, and smart ticketing. Together, these components can improve accessibility, reduce travel time, and support sustainable development. This slide shows the implementation plan for the proposed transportation strategies. The plan is divided into three periods, which are short-term, medium-term, and long-term. The short-term period is between 1 and 3 years. The focus is on improving pedestrian walkways, road crossing, feeder bus services, bicycle parking, and facility for persons with disabilities. The medium-term period is between 4 and 7 years. During this period, integrated mobility hubs, continuous cycling networks, electric buses, and transit-oriented development can be introduced. The long-term period is between 8 and 15 years. It includes expanding MRT, LRT, and bus rapid transit network. It also includes integrated smart ticketing and more low emission zone. This past implementation is important because every proposal requires different costs, time periods, and level of priority. Next, the implementation of this proposal requires cooperation between several agencies. The Ministry of Transport Malaysia is responsible for transportation policies, regulations, and funding. Prasarana Malaysia operates public transport service such as LRT, monorail, and rapid KL buses. MRT Corporation is responsible for planning and developing MRT infrastructure and station facilities. Local authorities such as DBKL, MBPJ, MBSJ, and MBSE are responsible for local routes, pedestrian walkways, and cycling facilities. Plan Measure is responsible for coordinating land use planning and transportation planning, especially for transit-oriented development. Therefore, strong cooperation between all agencies is important to ensure that the proposal can be implemented successfully. Next, the purpose transportation strategies support three sustainable development goals, which are SDG 9, SDG 11, and SDG 13. SDG 9 focus on industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Our proposals support modern transport infrastructure, smart technology, and integrated ticketing system. SDG 11 focus on sustainable cities and communities. The proposal can provide safer, more accessible, and affordable public transportation. SDG 13 focus on climate action. The use of electric buses, cycling, and walking can reduce carbon emissions from the transportation sector. Overall, the proposal supports a more sustainable, connected, and low-carbon Klang Valley. Next, this slide shows the expected outcomes after the proposed strategies are implemented. The first expected outcome is a reduced traffic congestion because fewer people will depend on private vehicles. The second outcome is increased public transport usage because the services will become more reliable, convenient, and connected. The proposal can also improve accessibility to workplace, school, healthcare facilities, and daily services. Real-time information and better transport integration can reduce waiting time and make transfers between different transport modes easier. The use of electric buses, cycling, and walking can also reduce carbon emissions. Overall, the purpose can improve mobility and the quality of life in Klang Valley. Next, this slide compares the transportation condition before and after the implementation of the proposal. Before implementation, Klang Valley faces high dependence on private vehicle, heavy traffic and congestion, and poor pedestrian connectivity. Cycling facilities are also limited, while waiting and transfer time between different transport modes are quite long. After implementation, public transport usage is expected to increase. Pedestrian walkways will become safer as cycling networks will be more connected. Real-time travel information will help users plan their journey, while transfer between MRT, LRT, KTM, and bus services will become easier. Overall, the transportation system will become more accessible, efficient, smarter, and greener. Next, in conclusion, Klang Valley already has a wide public transportation network, including MRT, LRT, KTM, monorail, and bus services. However, several problems still need to be improved. These include traffic congestion, high dependence on private vehicle, poor first and last mile connections, and limited pedestrian and cycling facilities. Therefore, we propose integrated mobility hubs, better pedestrian connection, transit-oriented development, smart transportation, and green mobility. This strategy can improve accessibility, reduce public vehicle usage, and create a more integrated and sustainable transportation system for Klang Valley. Next, differences. For this study, we use information from official government agency, training documents, transport operators, and academic sources. The main references include the Ministry of Transport Malaysia, Plan Malaysia, Prasarana Malaysia, MRT Corporation, and the Department of Statistics Malaysia. These references help us understand the current transportation situation and develop suitable proposal for Klang Valley. Next, this is all from our group. We hope this proposal can support a more integrated, accessible, and sustainable transportation system in Klang Valley. Thank you for your attention.